This is the second segment on the lecture, and it's part of ME 760 at the University of Waterloo. We're going to talk on this segment about food web, and the food webs should represent the habitat. We're doing calculations on what is the impact on the habitat from air toxics, and these air toxics can come from point sources, stationary sources, and mobile sources. Before we go into food web, we need to understand the concepts. And we talk about trophic level 1. These are the producers, the plants. Herbivores will eat those plants, and they are then trophic level 2. Herbivores will serve as food supply for omnivores, those that will eat plants and animals, and carnivores, trophic level 4. This is an example of a polar bear in food webs when we develop to represent the habitat. Talk about the producers, animals who eat, the trophic level 1, the plants, and these are the herbivores. And then we have at the top of the food web, the carnivore. We also have another food web here where we have the plants, the deer, and the mountain lion. It doesn't mean that we can either have this food web or this other food web. Food webs can be more complex, such as this one, plants, animals, carnivore, plant, insects, reptiles, carnivores. But it can get more complex still. For the same habitat, food webs will usually be more complex. In this case here, we can see plants to insects, reptiles, birds, reptiles, and the top of the food web could be the snake. I must highlight that the snake can also be eaten by the falcon or by the eagle. In this case here, plants, rabbits, fox. But fox can also be, although it's the top of the food web here, can also be food for the mountain lion as an example. And all these can happen in the same habitat. The habitats then are represented in our calculations to assess the impact from air toxics. We use food webs. And the food webs can be aquatic, where we would have freshwater marshes, brackish water, and marine or saltwater marshes. On the terrestrial side, we will have different habitats which will be represented by different food webs. We have the forest, short grass prairie, tall grass prairie, croplands, scrubs, intermediate between croplands or grass to desert, and then we finally have the desert food web. Representing this here, these food webs we created in the screening level ecological risk assessment protocol from the US EPA, and we can use them as basis to create different food webs. Those food webs will be fine for North America, but they may be different for Mexico, for example, or Australia. By using those food webs, we can make different ones. In the last lecture segment of the ecological risk assessment, we will show you how to create new food webs, how to relink food webs, and how to change each one of the elements, the animal that represent the guild. This is the first food web that I talked about, the forest. You can see soil, terrestrial plants, and then it will feed herbivore mammals. We saw this, invertebrates, herbivore birds. Now, this goes up in the food web and it gets more complex. Amphibians can eat invertebrates, and birds, carnivore reptiles. Carnivore birds can also eat carnivore reptiles. You can see here the connection that goes from here to here. Then we have carnivore mammals. In this food web, we even list where animals could be the representative of the guild. Coyote, red fox, gray fox, etc. Next food web, tall grass prairie, very similar, but the animals that represent the guild, it will change. And here we can see some animals that were representing carnivorous mammals. They're different. Carnivorous birds, you see golden eagle here. Carnivorous reptiles, we use other representative of the guild. Next one is the short prairie food web, and we have different animals representing them and also different sizes, etc. This is the intermediate between a productive land and a desert. And you can see here, we see coyote here, badger, etc. And the birds, they change here. You no longer see the eagle, for example. And you can see very similar. It goes terrestrial plants. The plants change. They're different plants. Herbivore mammals, different mammals. And birds, different birds. Next one. Going to the freshwater. I'm not showing the desert here. A little more complex because water and sediments will feed the phytoplankton, goes to aquatic vegetation, and then go in a complex manner to all the trophic levels. Brackish water, similar. Different animals, and the salt marshes, different interrelationships, but different representative of the guild. If you have any questions, please feel free to contact me.